Call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. We are hybrid tonight, so let's see. I'm checking. It looks like I see exactly one committee member on Zoom, but we'll do a roll call vote without Ed reminding me this time, which will be great. To call to order. So starting on Zoom, Emily Sisson.
Present.
All right. Fuzzy but counts. All right. Jeffrey Corum.
Here.
Joe McDonough.
Here.
Henry Kume.
Here.
John Sullivan.
Here.
Mark Sarro.
Here.
And Joe Carnahan here. So welcome everyone. The first item on our agenda is public comment. I don't see any members of the public here, but give a moment if anyone wants to raise a hand on Zoom. I don't see any there either. All right, moving right along. Liaison reports. It's only been a week since our last meeting, so haven't been that many meetings since then, but does anyone have anything to share? I see a lot of, I see we can add Ed to our list of attendees. He just joined at 7:03. Catch that in a few minutes. So I don't think I need to do another roll call when someone joins mid-meeting. Yeah. So we do have to start with a roll call in order to call to order when we're hybrid. But, all right. So in that case, let's jump into the meat of the agenda.
Hey, Joe, I do have one from...
oh, you have a liaison report. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, sorry, I didn't see a hand. My bad.
Killam School Building Committee met last night. I think the, mostly the way through the meeting, I was there. I was following it up after the fact. The main thing that was discussed and debated last night is, kind of looking at ways for the community to do like some early packaging so that we can do some more site work, things of that nature. So it helps us, one from a cost perspective, but also from a scheduling perspective. If we can do some of this, kind of early site work, that could help us, kind of down the road if we, kind of run into some any kind of issues. So there'll be more that we'll kind of report on in a couple of weeks in next month's meeting. But by and large, it's things are still, from a cash flow perspective, we're right on budget and right on schedule.
Thank you, Ed. All right, anyone else from the liaison reports? So I don't miss anyone else. All right, so the next item on our agenda is to discuss financial policies and impacts on bond rating. Not that I need to refresh people's memories, it's only been a week, but at our meeting at the Financial Forum a week ago, we talked quite a bit about anything that might impact the Downs bond rating, given that we are about to take out some really significant borrowings for the Killam and Senior Center projects. So another topic so I guess we asked Sharon for any more information we could get about things that impact bond ratings. It's something we can ask bond counsel about. So if there's anything to share there, we'll do that. And then also the subject we've touched on a couple times about financial policy review. I want to talk about that because having solid financial policies is unsurprisingly something that lenders like to see. Sharon, do you have anything on this topic?
Yes, thank you. I spoke to the bonding agent yesterday, just because one of the questions Karen Herrick had asked was, can you give me an idea of like what the difference would be in the borrowing if we had our bond rating fall to a AA plus from a AAA? And she did the calculations based on yesterday's rates, if we were issuing the whole $85 million yesterday. And she said the difference was about $1.3 million in interest over the life of the loan. So it's definitely something to consider. I feel like that's a significant amount of additional interest to consider. And also too, I had sent in your packet some of the things that they tell you online about municipalities and bond ratings, and they do kind of point to the 15% number there, saying that a 10% isn't good enough anymore. So it's definitely closer to the 15. In fact, the bonding agent was saying we like to even see higher, you know, and so I do feel like we're in kind of a very close, too close to call, trying to figure out if we could be in that situation where we could be downgraded because we are using significant amounts of free cash the last couple of years. So I do think it's important for us to kind of look at that. The only other thing I had mentioned at the last meeting was they like our financial policies, and we've gotten our AAA bond rating with those policies that are in place. One of the things that was in the information I sent you did say that strong adherence to a 15% minimum reserve. We've never had a policy that said we have to have a 15%, but that was what was pointed out in what I had seen, and even speaking to the bonding agent, it's not the whole, that they're looking at a lot of factors. It's not just what you have in reserves. It has a lot to do with how much debt you have outstanding, and we have less debt outstanding than most. And I feel like there's a lot of good factors going in our direction. They also look at your long-term liabilities like OPEB and pension and how you're doing with that. And we're almost 80% funded for pension, so we're not in a bad space there. So, but I do feel like this fiscal 27 seems to me to be the last year I'd be comfortable that we could stay in the AAA without going for an override next year for fiscal 28. That's just my personal opinion, but obviously I'm not the one who makes the call. I'm just giving you what my thoughts are.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee? I see Joe.
Sharon, quickly, the 1.3 million, is that based on?
Can you steal one of these microphones? I'm not sure if people on Zoom can hear you unless you do.
I can't hear him,
Yeah,
sorry.
We're working on it. 1 sec.
Is the 1.3 million based on all the debt that we would potentially take on? Or
Yeah, she just ran it as if all the debt was issued yesterday for a AAA bond rating and a AA. What kind of rates would we be looking at? Okay. And originally, when we first talked, she said it could be anywhere from 5 to 25 basis points, the difference between those two ratings. But yesterday, and that it fluctuates depending on what's going on with the market, it would have cost us $1.3 million more to be a AA plus as opposed to a AAA.
And she's like taking the same assumption on the terms that had been talked about before, like a town meeting. I forget exactly, like 15 years.
I think we said 20 and 15. I would imagine she did it under that. She didn't. She's going to do more detailed calculations for us. I'm going to send her some more information, but I think she did the same term, whatever it was, whether she did 30 or 20, I'm not sure, but she's like, there is a significant interest difference between the two.
Okay, thank you.
John.
Payback on that, Sharon, do you have a sense of how much of the total debt we're looking to borrow this year versus future years?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that one.
Do you have a sense of how much of that total debt for these projects we're looking to borrow in this coming fiscal year versus future years?
I estimated it to be 45 million for Killam and 16 for Recal. It could be less. I mean, we're still working with our bonding agent, but I always, I'm very conservative, and I gave you higher of the two numbers I was looking at. And so I wouldn't imagine it would be more than those numbers for the two projects, but we're going to work through it with our bonding agent just to make sure, because we have to be able to spend 10% of what we borrow within 6 months. So there's like very strict requirements on what you borrow. And so we really have to make sure the cash flow lines up with that, with all the expectations of the borrowing. And so that first hump, the 6 months, spending it, 10% of the money you borrow, all of the money you borrow, 10% of it has to get spent. They want to make sure that we're going to, reach that hurdle.
Okay, and so am I understanding this right? If we're looking to borrow about half the total cost this year, and if then we're confident that we'll have the AAA bond rating this year to go down to AA plus in future years, am I off base that 1.3 million could just be 650,000-ish.
It could be, yeah. I mean, if you're looking at it from a half perspective, she just kind of ran the numbers for Killam just to give us a feel of what the difference in that, life of the loan would look like. It could be about half, I would say. But also it's conditions of the market when we're issuing too, and what the rates are in the market. I mean, we could issue in January, and next year when we go to issue, it could be a lower rate, so it may not impact us at all. It's hard to know. So I do feel like they are saying the market is really good right now for us to enter. They were actually even seeing if we could potentially try and enter the market in December as opposed to January. So we're entertaining all options because they do feel like it's a good market for us to get a good rate. I don't think that they feel like with the financial information that they've seen that we're in jeopardy necessarily, but they're not S&P. They're the one who makes the call of whether or not, our bond rating will hold. But I feel like with each passing year with our reserves going down, that's a risk.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if we're borrowing the current fiscal year, obviously that half won't be affected by what our balance is subsequent year. Okay, I see Ed, but I see Mark first.
So neither project's out to bid though yet, right? There's no.
Nothing's been out to bid yet,
So
no.
when would the timing of that be for both projects?
I think it varies for both projects. Matt, do you know the timeline for them?
In terms of bids, you're saying?
Yeah, bid.
Are we even gonna be able to start in the January timeframe?
Yeah, no, I mean, we have January slated for both projects to start. So those packages are being created right now by the APMs and a little bit by our in-house procurement. So, they're both underway though. Yeah.
I feel like based on the cash flows, both of them will spend the money if the cash flows are accurate, but I've requested, updated cash flows from both projects. We're going to keep looking at the cash flows. If there's anything that slows the project, it could jeopardize our ability to make the threshold of 10% spending.
Ed?
More just a maintenance thing. Everyone but Mark I have trouble hearing. Even Matt, even you on the last one. I don't know if your mics are picking stuff up or not, but it's pretty hard to hear you.
You can't hear me, Ed?
Sharon, you are perfect.
Okay.
You're perfect. Everyone else is tied for last.
I feel like the mics in the select board room when I'm on Zoom, I have a hard time.
Yeah. Well, we
get those mics really close to you.
Yeah, and we have a bunch of soft talkers.
And make sure your green light is on that mic.
Yeah, I think you need really to speak close to the mic, directly into the mic. It should pick it up, and I know that.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah,
that's better.
That's helped.
Much
That's
better.
helped
Yeah.
in the past. So sorry about that.
All right. Oh, yeah, we're going to pass another microphone along to better supply the committee. At this point, we have one mic per in-person committee member. It's not going to get better than that. So everyone just needs to, literally lean in. All right. Other questions for Sharon? I do want to give an update on the topic of policy review, and I think Matt might have something to share on that as well with respect to the select board. If there are questions from what Sharon said, I want to let that go first. No.
I guess that,
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
do we have a number for what the 23 peer communities have as a target for their free cash balance? I think I read something in the last month or two about Winchester tightening the band of their free cash from like 6 to 10%. They wanted to narrow it to like 8 to 10%. But I'm completely making up the numbers. And I just wondered, if we look at the 23 peer communities, where are we in comparison?
I'm sorry, I don't know that. I could do the research for you. I haven't seen anything that would give me that number recently, comparables on DLS. But I do feel like when you do make a move where you're increasing the reserve, shows that you get how important the reserves are. And I'm guessing that's why they would have done it. But 15%, we're not in a position to go to 15%. So it's one of those things, but I do feel like it never stood in our way in the past, but any progress in the direction that they're hoping for, I think will be viewed positively, is my guess.
I wish the DLS website had a button where I could just click and select our 23 peer communities. Actually, the 21, I think, but out of the 351 instead of manually scrolling through 351 to select them. But it should be possible to see there what the reserves are for our peer communities. Though I don't think they have it broken down as a percentage of the budget. Andrew, go ahead.
So on the email from the bonding agency, there is a statement here that says a municipal bond rating AAA is impossible without at least 10% of the budget in reserve. So moving to 10%, would that be, well, I guess it's an open-ended question. How much of an impact on the overall budget that 3% additional would have? And is it something that we should consider at some point, or?
I feel like it's entirely up to you guys, but I do think that this, if you're looking at the free cash charts that I gave you to work with the different levels of operating budget, it felt like no matter what we ended up using this year, the next year we needed to do the override. It looked like it's just we're not even going to adhere to the 7% if we don't start thinking about it, because I feel like we'll have to drop below in some circumstances. I think some of them we might be okay for fiscal 28, but for the most part, if I remember correctly, I felt like fiscal 28, we were going to have issues staying above or just barely staying above the 7% that we have outlined in our policy.
Mark?
Especially if free cash goes down and my conservative projection of 3 million of regeneration comes to light.
Sharon, in the budget, do you have 100% of the capital budget coming out of the operating budget?
That 100% of the capital budget comes out of the operating budget, yes.
So if we, I think that when we look at capital and it's written in the policies, like, some can be financed, and I know you do finance some, but if we looked at, the capital equipment we're getting with, longer useful lives, if we did do more debt on that, that would lower our need for cash, correct?
It could lower our need for cash, but it also would increase our debt load, which all of that impacts the bond rating. So either way, I think
I thought our debt level was lower than what they.
It's very low, but we're looking to add a significant amount this round with the Killam and Recal and pickleball and Birch Meadow and the field toss floor. Those are the things we're looking to issue in January. I don't think it would make a huge impact necessarily on us because we do tend to pay off our debt very quickly, and that's one of the things that S&P likes about our management style for financial management. We tend to pay off as quick as humanly possible, and that's what they like to see. So it is a possibility that we could borrow, but we need to put debt articles on the town meeting floor to do that. And right now, that's not the way it's structured in what I presented to you last week.
Thank you. Other questions for Sharon here? So I still continue to be fascinated by the fact that the bonding agent says that they're very happy with our current set of policies. Not that our current set of policies is bad, but if the baseline is the set of policies recommended by the state, there are an awful lot of things that we don't have written down. Along those lines, actually, so I guess, actually, Matt, I should let you go first because we did ask the select board to look into this, and I understand they have responded.
Yes, they have. So they did receive the memo from the chair, and they've added it to the next agenda, which is on the 21st of October. So the agenda item is review and vote on finance committee's request to receive free review of town financial policies from Division of Local Services Financial Management Resource Bureau. That's on for 8:35. And I had asked the chair if you wanted to be posted for that meeting or if the chair or vice chair would be able to attend just in case Select Board does have any questions on it. I don't see any issues with this item, and I think that once they vote on it, that will kick off that process and we can start the free review. So.
Cool. So my update, which I think might be sort of rendered obsolete by the select board update, is that one member of the select board, Karen Herrick, reached out to DLS herself to ask about this topic. Well, actually, specifically she started by asking if they had heard from us. They had not. But then Zachary Blake from the, what is it called? It's the Bureau of Helping Us. It is the Financial Management Resource Bureau, a resource to our financial management, did write back, and Karen included me on the reply, to offer to chat with us for 15 minutes on the phone at some point or on a Zoom at some point. May still have that conversation, but it also might be a moot point if the select board is going to reach out. That would be the real connection. They did send me, which might be of interest here, and I can send this to Jackie to just distribute to the committee a copy of the template they use. Apparently, the way they're able to offer the service for free is that they have it all worked out. There's a template, and you swap in names and numbers in this large document, and it has a set of policies. It doesn't have one of the policies that we've talked about visiting, namely the peer community policy. So that actually might be something I might take advantage of the phone call to ask about, to say where do you all stand on peer community policies? Because we certainly find that useful. We use it. It's already come up in this meeting in a question. But our peer community list is getting a little bit long in the tooth, so it's probably worth revisiting. But I don't know if they'll be able to help us with that or not. So I think it's still worth pursuing, even if Sharon says our current set of policies is good. So hopping back to the agenda, do we have other comments or questions about the topic of financial policies and our bond rating? Joe.
Looking at the debt in capital,
real close to that.
looking at the debt in capital policy, right now it says, and again, I don't know if we should read this as a policy or guideline, but it says that it should be a minimum of 5% of revenue. And we're talking about doing 4 3/4, right, for the current proposed budget. So are we going against our policy?
It is an internal policy, so we can make a judgment call and go against what our typical is. It is an internal policy. There's nothing holding us to it. It's just writing it out, saying this is our intent. This is what we hope to do in most years. And so we are doing the 4.75 is kind of going against what we have in writing there, but it is to help with the balancing of this budget and minimize the use of reserves.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense, but we just might want to change the wording at some point to, make like a recommended, minimum of 5% or something. And then I guess my other question too is that and this is 2018, but the FinCom encourages the treasurer to consider refunding, in advance refunding any eligible outstanding debt when the savings net of issuance cost exceeds $50,000 annually. So I don't know if what triggered that 50,000 threshold of that needs to be updated. I know you look at that, but.
So anytime we're issuing debt at all, our bonding agent is looking at any opportunities for savings. And most of our debt has been issued at such a low rate that there is no savings out there for us. It's kind of a guideline that was written out for us to, make sure that if we are going to refund it, that it's worthwhile savings. Maybe that 50K isn't the number. Maybe it should be some other number. But right now we're in a space where we're coming out of very low interest rates. And now we're issuing it higher than what we have in the past. We've got very little debt on our books, so there isn't anything that's even a candidate for refunding right now.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the 2 big projects coming, at some point. I don't know if it should be a percentage of the project or just, absolute dollar terms. I'm not sure.
Other comments or questions on financial policies and or bond rating? Oh, all right. So here's the big one, folks. Our biggest decision of the year every year. Discuss and vote on use of free cash to support the FY27 budget. Obviously, we got a presentation from from Sharon last time. Sharon, I don't know if you have anything new to add, or if I should just open up to the committee. Or if you don't have anything else new to add, I will open up to the committee for comments and questions.
Do you want me to share this slide that shows what
yes, please.
the options are?
There's a slide that has some choices in terms of percent impact on the operating budget and absolute dollars. That's a very useful thing to have up on the screen. Not that we don't like seeing all of you on Zoom, but this is, we do really need this.
On it. Give me a second. I have it open, but I can't see it when I hit share. There it is. Can you see it?
Give it a moment. Oh, there it is.
Very high numbers.
So does anyone have any comments or questions and thoughts they want to share?
Emily has her hand raised.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for catching that faster than me. Emily, please.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I switched microphones. Hopefully that's better. I've been thinking about this a lot since we heard the presentation from Sharon last week. It's a lot of free cash. All of it's kind of a tough number to swallow. I think this is much higher than we anticipated we'd be, even 2 years ago. But where I'm kind of sitting, hearing Dr. Milichevsky say, the 3% with the arrangement the town and the school have made to kind of help each other I feel like since the absolute value of the difference between 2.75 and 3.0 is only 200K, free cash usage, I feel like giving what the schools need to not have to slash any services or any programs is kind of where I'm landing personally. I think, when we look at those projections that Sharon had shared in the Excel file, whether we do 2.5, whether we do 3.5, we're looking at an override all for fiscal year 28. I think the difference, the negligible difference here can have an impact on how the schools are able to operate. So I'm leaning 3%, but could be swayed. I know this committee has lots of thoughtful arguments all the time. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? I was gonna say, Joe, I see you looking at me. Go ahead, Joe. But close to the mic and turn it on.
With all respect for you, Emily, I guess I was coming away last week thinking of like 3%. And I hear what you're saying about like the 200K in the big scheme of things not being that significant from a free cash usage when we look at how much free cash we're spending. But I was looking at, I heard maybe the school can make it work. My only concern with going down that route would be, I'm not sure what, the town is potentially, how they're being impacted it's nice that they're transferring to the schools, but just want to make sure I understand what the town is like maybe not doing. And my other question was more thinking about an override and how taxpayers may view this. I'd hate to all of a sudden, if they look at, what, the operating budget has increased over the last couple of years, yes, it might be that perception that, you should have started reducing, costs earlier, right? By all of a sudden you jump into the override. And I hate to say and send a message, but the 2.75 might be, it's very close to the 2.5, which Proposition 2.5 forces us into. So.
Right. Do you want me to respond to that?
Please go ahead, Matt.
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, the deal we reached this with the school is, I think it's helpful for both of us. I think with the sweet spot here that Sharon outlined, we'll still be able to do enough. I mean, we've known, and I've been telling department heads for a year now, you know, keep expenses low. We have to really keep an eye on things. They know an override is looming. And if we were to go into a more drastic situation for the town, that would mean, you know, a lot of cuts to expenses and possible personnel cuts, which I'm trying to avoid this year, and I know the superintendent is as well. So we had several meetings in my office with the superintendent and his team, with Sharon, our team, Jane Wellman, to talk about these things. And this is really, we're both very comfortable with it, both myself and Dr. Milichevsky, if we could go with that 3% number. I don't think it's extravagant. It is, you know, an increase in free cash, which we knew was coming, but we had started out, when we just threw everything in on both sides, we were looking at maybe even upwards of $7 million of free cash. And I'm like, that's not going to fly. We need to cut it back. So we really did sharpen our pencils, you know, cut back as much as we could, but still want to deliver top services, which is what I think the public demands on both the school and town side. So specifically, we're going to be in good shape if we have that number that Sharon's talking about. Anything lower than that is going to be problematic for the town and certainly the schools. Anything higher than that would be appreciated, and we would do other things. You know, there are things that the department heads have that they'll be outlining to select board and later to FinCom that they sort of wish they could do, but it's really not on the books for this year or maybe next year. So, and I don't want to get into too many specifics, especially on the personnel side of things, but you know, I think you can envision what we might need to do if it's too low. If it's in the middle, status quo and a little more. If it's higher, we can do a little more. And that's, you know, the way I look at it. So,
right, thanks.
Thank you.
Ed, I see your hand on Zoom.
Thanks, Joe. Prior to Matt speaking, I was thinking more just to, you know, I was looking more at the 2.75% versus the 3%, and it just, you know, to Emily's point, I know it's not a lot of difference, but I just think it's one of those things where if we're heading in that direction, I think it's you know, kind of incumbent upon us to, you know, start to, you know, further kind of tighten the belt. And then, so then Matt, and then, you know, with your, you know, your latest feedback, I think then, you know, I'm more comfortable with 3, but I think one of the things that we just need to do, and I'm sure you and Jane and others and the department heads are already thinking this, but I just think we need that messaging needs to, you know, that needs to be kind of coming out all the time. The things that, you know, and maybe we're all going to hear that in this round of budget presentations and reviews, but I think that we need that sober, you know, kind of messaging as far as what, you know, what aren't we doing, what would be cut, you know, things of that nature, because I think that is going to be, you know, kind of playing this out, you know, kind of, you know, this conversation next year, and as we start to talk about, you know, remedies and what the size and scope of those are, it needs very powerful messaging, and having some of those specifics will definitely be would be helpful, and I think that's, you know, would be helpful for, you know, kind of in my analysis at looking at this is like, okay, well, how hard does that $200,000 you know, dollar difference, you know, what is the real impact of that? And again, I fully appreciate that, you know, in the grand scope of the budget, that's not a lot of money, but if we're, you know, kind of gnashing teeth and threading needles to get there, then I think that's something that, would be more specifics around that is always helpful. Again, and I know in the discussion last week, kind of what's coming up with collective bargaining and things of that nature. I think those are all things that, I think we're just going to have to be in a situation where and I know Sharon does this, but we're always talking about it, and we're always talking about, kind of what's what's the impact of this decision and the next decision and the decision after that.
Did you want to respond to that, Matt?
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Ed, and that messaging, has been there and will be forthcoming even more. I mean, I think the select board, every meeting we talk about ways to save money, to stave off an override. The department heads have come up with some great ideas so far that they've presented that is saving money. But the problem is, inflation, like everything else. And when we see the trash and rubbish contract going up 25% and employee health insurance going up, 13% last year and probably another 13% this year. I mean, those are troubling things. It's something we have not that much control over, but we're trying to manage. And we are doing that by cutting expenses in other areas as well. So, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. The word needs to get out even clearer that if we don't start moving in that direction, things will become drastic soon. And I know Sharon's been talking about this for a couple of years now. So, 100% agree with you on that, Ed.
So Matt, just one thing too, and again, I get these confused just because I don't think about town meeting that often. But is that something that's planned to be kind of discussed in talking points, or is that more of a spring discussion where some of that could be shared with a broader audience? And again, I think this is. Again, we, are there to counsel on town meeting, but I think hearing that, in that setting in November would be helpful. I think it would be, and even to the point of just even talking about what we, an agenda item or two ago about the cost of borrowing, even these kind of first tranches of borrowing, I think would be helpful. I mean, those are, these are all kind of, sizable things that come out of, kind of one pie. And, there's a lot that, the public and the tax base demands. There's the levels of service that they expect. But, again, it doesn't stay stagnant from a cost perspective. But I think it would be really, and I think that this gets to what Joe was saying. I want to remove any appearance of, that we're and the town is frivolous. It's far from that, but it doesn't. But I think you have to yell loud so that people know that, and they have to do it consistently in every setting. And I think we have a great appreciation for it, but we're a committee of 9. And I think that's, I just worry about that, kind of going forward, because it is obviously a very sensitive topic, and there's a lot of communities that struggle with it.
Yep, no, I agree. And I mean, we'll certainly talk about it a lot in April, because that's when the budget is on the town meeting warrant, and that is going to be a lot of discussion, I think, about this year's budget for sure. But even prior to that, there are certain financial articles that we'll be previewing later in the meeting that are on for November, and that conversation will come up during discussion of capital and debt and whatnot, for sure. And I'll hammer it home, and so will Sharon, and she has been, so the town meeting really understands, the general public understands, what we're dealing with. So,
thanks, Matt. Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, John.
Yep. Thank you, Ed. Mark.
Just a couple of notes. First, just an edit. This is FY27, not 26. We're talking about here. Budget. All right.
Yes. Did I say 26?
No, but
Slides. So
it's all good. We know what you mean, but yes.
So the other thing that I think needs to be probably presented at town meeting, or everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people in the town realize that regeneration has been around $6 million. So we look at, spending, six, say it's the 3%, so 6.75. And if people out there are thinking the regeneration is going to be 6, so it's really not that much of free cash we're going to eat into. I think that needs to be presented probably by Sharon, how that's not going to, it happened for a number of years in a row. It's been around 6 million. I think it needs to be kind of presented that those days are over and why are they over?
Yeah, regeneration's going down. So.
Yeah, but I think it's important to explain that because.
Yeah, no, and I think Sharon explains it well, but certainly I'm sure that'll come up and she'll explain it again about how that number is trending down.
John.
Yes, so my initial leaning, I guess, was to the 3% on this. My concern, I think, is if we are thinking about heading into an override next year, going into it with a level services kind of budget might reduce the sense of urgency on the override. Like you can kind of tell people services are going to come down if this doesn't pass, but they haven't seen that happening going into it. Maybe they, they're saying,
right,
we don't really believe this. And if I remember right, the last 2 overrides we've had have both failed the first time, and then have to come back 2 years later. And if we are in a similar situation with this, I feel like, if it doesn't pass next year and we're another couple years down the road, things are going to get a lot worse quick. So,
and we're not saying 100% it's going to be next year. I know, you heard Sharon talk about it from a debt perspective, but I think in the next few years for sure. But I don't want to put out there now that we're doing this next year. Let's do it. We still have to look at the numbers. A lot depends on borrowing, regeneration, a lot of numbers that are out of our control, but we'll keep an eye on it for sure. And, I think it is a level services budget. I understand what you're saying. And Dr. Milachevsky isn't here tonight, but I think he'd echo the same thing. To start, if there is money available there and to start cutting just for the sake of cutting, I would rather just say, hey, listen, we're here and this is what could be cut in the future, and give a little bit of a warning for the sake of not just the employees on the school and the town side, but the residents in general, because they'll see some sort of reduction in service right away. And if we could stave that off by using a little bit of the money in the bank, we're still in a decent free cash position. Although it's going down, it still leaves us with about 17 million, which is a lot better than a lot of other towns. Plus, we have 2 million in other reserves. So it's a harder argument to make. The unions are watching it as well. Everybody's seeing, watching what we're doing pretty closely. So,
and I don't want to see a reduction in service either. I'm concerned that it could lead to more reductions. If a level service budget this year could lead to more reductions in service going forward, if it, hurts the override effort.
I'm looking around for other hands on the committee. Yeah, I will say, Matt, you were sort of talking there about sort of uncertainty about when an override would be, but with all due respect, in a fight between any of us, Sharon's spreadsheet wins. And it's pretty grim. That's one of the really striking things about this. It's what Emily led off by saying. It's sort of you put all these different numbers, 2.5, 3, 3.5 in a spreadsheet. Actually, 3.5 I think is even sooner somehow. But all the numbers that we're seriously considering don't change the fact that we fall below the 7% threshold with $3 million regeneration. And since we really only had $4 million this year, and it's probably going to be less as belts tighten, $3 million is actually a pretty good estimate, unlike the previous years of $6 million.
Definitely agree with that. I'm just saying it's still unknown that nothing. I don't want to put a word up that we're doing this and, when's it going to be on the ballot, all that stuff. That's yet to be decided. But obviously the financial indications are leading that way. But I don't want it to be like it's set in stone, we're doing it next year, 100%. We're going to have to still look at a lot of different factors. So.
When we get to future agendas, I'll be asking you about who talks about what when with that subject. Yeah. But we're not there yet.
Yep, exactly.
I guess I will say, supporting something you were saying, Matt, about the question of sort of cutting for cutting's sake. The absolute amount of free cash is quite respectable. So we're all here trying to anticipate the behavior of the median voter in a future override. And yes, one concern is the median voter will be upset because we didn't, start cutting service sooner. There's also the concern that they will look at the absolute amount of free cash and say, nah, you could go another year.
Right.
So, that might be a rock and a hard place. Here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey.
So I guess my thought is if the 2.75 could give us an extra year to an override, then that would make sense, right? Since it won't, I don't see any reason to cut positions and leave extra money in free cash for those voters that say, wow, we have how much, $1 million in free cash? I think we've heard from the town and the schools that they've spent some time figuring out that, the town could get by with a little bit less. They kick a little bit over to the schools, and they've spent some time agreeing on this 3%. And cutting a little bit there really doesn't really move the needle in terms of pushing the override off. So I'm inclined to agree with this 3%.
The bit about kicking off, well, actually, I'll go ahead and finish my comment here because I think this is an important one. So a question that I haven't heard asked directly yet. So because everyone's budget is based not directly but indirectly on their past year's budget, because that's the staff that they have to pay for another year. I am wondering and I'm not necessarily objecting, but I'm certainly asking about the implications for the town-school split over the long term here. That if the town, in particular, part of how we're making this work is a permanent reduction to the town's expenses by moving people into the stormwater fund in that way. So that is, that will be money, that will be a factor that puts the town in a different position from the school next year and every year going forward by, that much. So I guess the question is this an implicit proposal to move the town school split? Is this something that we actually have to discuss? That is not one. Town school split is not one of the policies that we have officially picked anywhere, but it is a well-established, way of doing things that has served Reading well. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't necessarily move when it needs to.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the split, it's been that way for a long time. I think for what we're talking about, helping out the schools sort of on a one-time basis to get over the hump with certain things, I don't see that as a permanent where we're readjusting the split. I think it's about a net of $75,000 or something like that. It's not a lot, but it helps them. And if we can do that, let's do it and get the service, because we're one town. We want to have a good, strong school department and a good, strong town side. So that's thinking on that. It's not something we took lightly. It's not something we generally do. In this case, this year, we could afford it to do it on the town side, and it was something the school side asked for to avoid certain things happening on their side. So but I don't see it as a permanent change. That's Sharon, do you disagree with that, or? I don't know. Maybe she does.
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I feel like this is a one-time thing. Obviously, we work together as a team with the school, and where it was much tighter for them, we were able to get our numbers that we could be comfortable at the 2.75, and it made it work better for the school. So it was a compromise that we came to for this 1 year only. Obviously, we would bend if we needed to in future years, because that's just the way we work, but I wouldn't be proposing any kind of long-term change to the split.
Okay. Thank you. Andrew.
Yes. So I am in full support of the 3% increase, and I wanted to make a comment that between the 2.75 and the 3%, that 200K goes a long way, and also it makes me happy to see that the town is actually moving forward with helping the school, and this is one of those opportunities that we show support for each other, and I think it's a great, the explanation that Matt gave and Jeff, that was great. So I'm in full support of the 3%.
I'm looking around for other comments or questions. All right. So the number that I have heard the most support for in everyone's comments is the 3% number, or recommendation of a use of $6.75 million in free cash in the FY27 budget. Thank you, Mark. Would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
I'd like to make a motion to approve 3% increase in the operating budget, or for a total of 6.75 million, as presented in the slide.
Second.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Mark. Any final discussion before we vote? All right, starting on Zoom. Ed.
Yes.
Emily.
Yes.
Back here in the room, Jeffrey.
Yes.
Joe.
No.
Yes.
Henry. Oh, sorry, yeah. Yes. Next was going to be Henry. Henry voted yes. John.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
And Joe Carnahan, yes. I believe that was, are we all present? That's 7, sorry, that's 7-1. That's right.
So thank you. That's much appreciated. I know it's a tough decision for the finance committee as well, but it does go a long way for the town and the school department. So I appreciate that.
All right, so continuing with the agenda. So we didn't actually have a capital plan review in the financial forum last week, and there was a request for that. Sharon has shared updated capital plan in the packet the committee has received. Sharon, are there things there you would like to highlight for us? This, by the way, is separate from in a minute where we'll talk about the town meeting article where we will revise the capital plan.
Yeah, I figured it would be nice to just see like how you can read my capital plan. And I asked Jackie to make sure that the view includes my notes to the right of what I did, because it tends to be like I'll highlight something that says there's a change there, and off to the right it will tell you what the change is. So I just wanted to kind of quickly go over it with you guys, just so you can see kind of, if you're looking at it, what I'm doing. Let me pull up the capital plan. Well, first I'm going to start with the debt plan, I think, because that's something to discuss. Oops, that's the wrong one, sorry. The enterprise fund. Do I have the debt one open? Yes, I do. Okay.
Looks like page 20 in the packet. Is that that's a debt service schedule. Is that what you're looking for?
So the first thing I wanted to share with you is the debt schedule for a variety of reasons. So the budget that went in for fiscal 26 at April town meeting had assumed that we would have already borrowed for the fieldhouse floor, for pickleball, for all of those things. We ended up doing an internal borrowing to push those things off because it gave us more money for capital in fiscal 26. So what we did was we moved off those projects. And so you can see the fieldhouse floor, I did a ban, so I just have interest, and I moved off the principal and interest payments. And same thing with pickleball, that there was a number here for 26. I moved it out because I'm going to borrow in January, and Birch Meadow Phase 2. So moving those projects actually ended up, interesting, this one shows it's got debt payment here. Anyway, it was $698 total. It's $698,000 total that I took away from the debt service by moving the debt that we had 1 year out. And that allowed us to do more capital in fiscal 26, which I think was really necessary given that fiscal 27, in order to make that budget work, we're bringing it down to 4.75. So I'll close this and I'll show you the capital plan now. Way too many things open is what I'm finding. Can you see that? Yes. Okay. Yes. So the way that this works is up here, it's kind of just summarizing the capital by like department and stuff, but it also shows you like our revenues and what that 5% number is, and then we take out the debt that we're the inside the levy debt. to get to the number. So we ended up changing this number by 698,000 because I reduced the debt payments by 698. But we did have some fairly important things to do in fiscal 26. First of which was this lighting control upgrade for the Reading Memorial High School at 200,000. I don't know, it was definitely something that come up kind of spare of the moment, and it's quite expensive at 200,000. And then we had some problems with Parker Middle School auditorium lighting, and we had originally put in there 150, it was 50,000, and he said it could be a lot more if we can't get this fixed, and it ended up being more. So I added 180, but if you look to the right, you'll see increased by 180. So when I highlight something on the right, it will highlight to you that there's a change, and if you go to the cell, you might be able to figure it out, but on the right, it will say what I did, which is increase by 180. So we were hoping to get the problem resolved for 50,000, and it is not going to be. It's going to have to be a full lighting upgrade at 230. Moving down for fiscal 26, what else do we have? Yes, we had a fire truck, and the cost of that fire truck is up $150,000. We had it at 1.150, and it came in at 1.3. So I had to increase that. They're looking to transition to a new Zoll monitor system for their ALS defibrillators, and that is 310,000. In order to get all of this to balance back to that 698, I did have to take $72,000. I think it was 72, maybe it was a little bit more than that, 72,000 away from road paving, but the road paving is getting additional funding from Chapter 90 this year, so I thought this was a good year to do that change. So that's what we have going on for fiscal 26. If I go for 27, and this will highlight what we're going to be seeing in the November town meeting capital article, so we'll probably can go through that very quickly after I do this. So we have an elevator at the Main Street fire station that needs to be replaced at 300,000. So that's an add. In order to do that, we actually had to push out this electrician's van 2 years. So you could see it was here, I moved it to here. So you see if it's going out, you're going to see the highlight going out. If it's coming in, it'll be the other way. So 55,000 going out. Then there was also a need for this Bobcat skid to be moved in. I guess it's definitely in bad shape and needed to be moved in. And I get this information from my meetings with the department heads who work closely with these assets. IT has requested a server for our building security system for the town and schools, and that's an $80,000 ask that wasn't there before. I did take down their number for our total technology projects on the town side by 5,000 to help make this balance. I had to move out this ambulance equipment and this pickup truck, 45,000 and 80,000 to get to that 4.75. I also have turnout gear here increased by $50,000. So you can see my addition there was 300,000. It had to go up by 50. And we prioritize based on the need for whatever the asset is. If something can wait, we let it wait. If something's urgent, and if something's broken down, it's obviously going to take precedence. And then here we have a tractor at 100,000. It was at 80. And it went up by 20,000. So these are the things we're constantly dealing with balancing the capital plan, is just in changing cost. In order to kind of get us closer to the 4.75, I moved this mower forward. So one out of all of them, one comes in, but most of them went out. And here, I had originally budgeted 160 for curb work. I had to take 40,000 out of there. And I also took out 96,000 from the paving to get down to the 4.75. So that's what we did for fiscal 27. In fiscal 28, sorry, I'm not trying to make you guys dizzy. I'll just do the 3 years, and I think that's mostly what you'll see at town meeting, but at least you'll be able to read kind of what we do on the capital plan a little bit better, seeing how we do it. I had to move that facilities capital plan that we mentioned from 27 to 28, that master plan. We also have an elevator at Town Hall that needs to be replaced at $325,000, so that went up from 252 by 73,000, so I had to increase that. This moved up. It's not anything for 28. This was moved from 27 to 28. This was moved from 27 to 28. The pickup truck and the ambulance, as we spoke of just a few moments ago. I had to move this police unmarked vehicle out one more year. I did bring this dump truck in 1 year because it's not in great shape and they think they need it sooner. The challenge here with the capital plan generally is that inflation has increased the price of all of our capital to the point that now an asset that has a 10-year useful life, I'm lucky if I get it replaced by 15 years, 12 to 15, and 15, it's 18 to 20 years, which is, we're off schedule for sure, and is a recipe for disaster in some ways because you end up paying more for maintenance on some of these things because they're older. And these two assets went out, the two mowers, 24,000 and 12,005. And then another mower out 1 year. Gonna get a lot of mowers in 29. And then here, what did I do here? 120, this, I'm not sure if it doesn't show any addition. So fiscal 27 was reduced by 25,000, fiscal 28 was reduced by 15. Sorry, I did not show the addition there, or subtraction. And then here I subtract 25,000 from the skim coating, and I add 85,000 here for paving. So that's like the gist of the capital plan for the next 3 years. And when I go over the article for capital, that's pretty much what you're gonna see, just it's summarized. But I don't know that, I think sometimes it's helpful for people to be able to read this capital plan and see what's coming, because there's things beyond 28 and you can see what's happening to those things. So knowing what the highlight means and what direction it is helpful to reading it. So I figured I'd show that. Does anybody have any questions on that?
I'm looking around for questions. Go ahead, Joe.
Just quickly, on the sidewalk curb, pedestrian safety and skim coating, are those specific to like one area? Because I think it's helpful, like a lot of the things are labeled, but if there's something like that, should I assume that that's just more general? Like
if it's not specifically labeled that it's a certain street, it's not. It's whatever they can get done with the funding that I put there, and they prioritize based on what's in the worst shape.
Okay, thanks.
On the subject of the sidewalk safety, so I'll note that this is actually really the warrant report, but it's also not clear from that what the FY28 change is. I feel like it's the same thing as the spreadsheet where it's not clear what changed. So if you fix that in the spreadsheet, you may also want to fix that in the warrant report for the FY28 part of Article 4. Or sorry, Article 3, Article 3 is
what line is it?
This is the FY28 sidewalk curb pedestrian safety change.
There was definitely something that I mentioned to Jackie that when I was looking at it yesterday that I changed after you guys received your packet. Let's see if it has it. It was the sidewalk, you said?
Yes, because I went to look at it in the warrant report when you were talking about, when you were trying to figure out what had been the change in the spreadsheet. I was wondering if the change was in the warrant report, and it's not.
It's not, no. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I do is I look back. So this basically, all that we're doing for the article for capital is we're highlighting the changes that we made since the last time the capital plan was in the warrant book. So April would have been the last time they've seen it. So I make sure that I bounce back to the difference between the numbers and what the numbers were for each of the years capitalized to make sure that I've highlighted everything. But sometimes we can miss things, and sometimes it's like I'll highlight it, but I'll forget to put a comment over to the right. But I found a couple that didn't have a comment to the right that probably went out in your packet, because I caught them after it went out. But generally, I think seeing these comments helps you understand what I'm doing. And I think because it's such a large spreadsheet, we tend to cut that off, but I think it's helpful to see.
No, it's enormously helpful. I have done the exercise of looking at the capital plan from one year to the next to try to understand differences. It's no fun. So thank you very much for including those comments. Other comments or questions about the capital plan? Henry.
So on the public safety, there's a lot of public safety equipments, and I know there's grants out there for some of these, but this is more of actually a follow-up for Matt. I know in the past we've gotten some earmarks. Can for any of these items that we have in here, like, is there any appetite for it, or with the federal funding being cut, probably not?
You're saying in the past we've gotten grants, is there any?
Yeah, grants or earmark from.
Oh, earmarks,
yeah.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, we're always, believe me, I'm a big believer in grants and even more so getting earmarks. And we're always asking for not just federal, but there's a lot of state money available. And the Reading delegation reaches out to us every year on the earmarks saying, is there anything specific that you want? And usually we get something. They have to spread it out through their district or whatnot. It's a little, on the federal side, it's a little more, we have to sort of wait and see. But earmarks on the federal side too, the congressman's office and the senator's office would reach out. And we don't always get it because we're competing with the whole state there, but certainly something that's still a big priority because grants and earmarks, don't affect our bottom line operating budget. So yeah, for sure, we keep on, and we do. And some of our grants are. We just got one that we've. I think the press release is going out soon, but it's only for about $8,000 or $9,000 on the public safety side. But every little bit helps, in my book. So something like that is money that the taxpayers in Reading don't have to specifically spend. That comes from a different source. So that's for sure.
And just a quick question. I don't know if anybody knows what's a turnout gear, and it says every 5 years. I see it here, $350K for every 5 years. What is that? Turnout gear?
Turnout gear?
Yeah.
We have
the fire chief answer that. I kind of know what it is.
Come on up.
Every 5 years.
Sorry, it's Heidi, didn't see me under.
Yes.
So turnout gear, that's the fire structural gear that you see them wearing when there's a fire. So it's big, heavy gear that protects them from the thermal barriers and hazards. And by an FTA, that it's only good for 10 years. And after 10 years, you have to destroy it. So that's why we have every 5 years we replace it, because when one set of gear gets dirty, it has to be washed and cleaned for cancer prevention. And you have to have a second set of gear while that's occurring in case there's a second event. So what we do, we buy it every 5 years. They wear the primary set for 5 years, and then that rotates in the backup position to get us out the next 5 years for a maximum of 10 years. You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions from the committee about the capital plan? Nope. I'm not seeing any. I'm double checking Zoom. All right. In that case, let's move on to discuss and vote on financial articles in the subsequent town meeting warrant. Matt, you drive here?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and we do have a few. Some of them are repetitive that we have every year. The first one, Article 3, is about the capital improvement budget. So, I mean, you can see in the article, it's pretty much what Sharon just outlined in her presentation. Everything's listed there. And I forgot, do you vote on these individually, or at the end will you take a vote?
We vote on them individually. I mean, we can, I think it's up to us whether we take the votes as you present or at the end.
Okay. So I mean, we've just talked about capital for a while, so if you wanted to vote on this one now, or if you want to hold them off, I have about maybe 6 that need votes. So.
I was going to say, let's go as we go. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't see a strong opinion. Sometimes we'll do assignment of articles at the end afterwards, but we could also do that as we go along. And I think voting as we go along makes sense so that people remember, which one was Article 4? Oh, that's the budget. So in that case, it doesn't sound like there's anything else to be said about Article 3 of the capital plan changes, besides we've already heard just quite a bit.
Did you want me to go over it with you? I just kind of did.
I was going to say, just did. I mean, does anyone? No, I don't think I'm seeing head shaking. If someone would like to hear more on Zoom, please raise your hand before we move on. Oh, Joe.
It's not a question, but
turn on your mic.
It may only be me, but
Yeah, your mic. There you go. Turn on.
the way these are listed, like, is it possible maybe just list all the positives and then the negatives? So you can see what was like added and then what was removed, like as opposed to going back and forth. It may be just the way my little mind.
I'm just doing it in order of how it shows on my capital plan so I don't miss anything. So that's the reason it comes in the order. It's in the order it is on the actual capital plan.
Okay. Okay, then maybe just say that maybe at the beginning when it's introduced. Then okay, got it.
Any other comments or questions from the committee on Article 3? Can I get a motion with respect to Article 3?
Emily here.
Move to recommend the contents of Article 3 to town meeting as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Jeffrey. Emily's doing this from, the parking lot outside of a swim meet or something, I think I heard. I appreciate the heroics to participate. Thank you. All right. Let's, if there are no more comments, let's take a vote. Ed?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Joe Carnahan, yes.
Thank you.
So that was 8-0.
And do you vote on who presents the report at town meeting after?
Well, yeah, we can do assignments. We can ask for volunteers. Let's go through the maybe we'll get to the votes and then we'll. Yep. Let's find one. Just want to make sure. I don't think there are any that people have looking at these. I didn't. Sometimes we have ones where it's really like near and dear to the interests of a particular committee member. I suspect this one will just be taking turns.
Okay. So Article 4 is the typical article to amend the FY26 budget. Every year there are small amendments made to the budget based on need and things we didn't perceive back in April. So you have that laid out there. Sharon could explain further detail if needed, but these are fairly straightforward changes, and there's not a lot of them. Sharon, do you want to add anything to that Article 4 discussion?
Yeah, I can add a little bit. The health insurance, we had at 13.5, I think, increased 13.52 or something. But if you recall, at the end of the year, I got more FinCom reserves to get the actuals to be in line with what they were going to be. And so that 305 helps us get to 13.5% higher than what the actual for fiscal 25 was. The other issue is that as of January 1st, our MedX, which is our supplemental Medicare plan, goes up 14%. So I need a little buffer there. So that's why I added the 305. I don't even know if it's going to be enough because I don't know what enrollment looks like for that plan right now. But so I added because I knew that we were going to be short of that 13.5%, and I added a little buffer for that. There may be a need to ask again in April if we're running short. We did have workers' comp come in lower than we had projected, so I used 90,000 of that, a net of 215. We talked about the capital and debt at 698, just a switch of where the funding is being allocated from debt to capital. The Northeast Regional Metro Vocational School, their budget went up 10.18% for fiscal 26. And we've seen an increase in enrollment over the last couple of years from like 31 to 51 students going to that school. So we needed an additional 240,000 to cover the tuition for the kids going there and the capital charge for the new school, because it's all done pro rata, how many students you have going there as a percentage of the total. So we got we got that number just before April town meeting, so it was too late for me to change anything. And then we do have the reimbursement back to FinCom that we spoke of last week, which is the $50,000 for the radio amplification for the high school. That health rodent control, that $50,000 was actually paid last year by ARPA, but there are no more ARPA funds. And so we are looking to add that to our regular budget as a baseline, the $50,000, so that we can budget for it each year for rodent control. The end net number is 555, and we're using 355 from free cash, and we had additional state aid of $200,000 coming in above projections. So that's how we're funding this article.
Great. Okay, I see Mark. I see Jeffrey. Go ahead, Mark.
Just on that, the second line, shouldn't that say see Article 3, not Article 4? This is Article 4.
Oh, I changed that today, but yeah, I caught that this morning. So this was already sent out to you before I noticed that, but yeah, it's Article 3. And I've changed it for the warrant book.
Sorry about that. Articles flip around, so.
I had the same question, but then also, why is K91 there since there's no increase or decrease?
I deleted that as well. I don't know. I just missed it.
Good questions. Other questions about Article 4? All right, I think it's time for a motion.
Motion to recommend the contents of Article 4 to town meeting as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Jeffrey. Any final comments before we vote? All right, starting on Zoom, Ed?
Yep.
Emily?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Joe Carnahan, yes. That's 8-0.
Okay, thank you. So the next article that we require a vote on is Article 5, and this is transfer of funds from closed out capital projects. So you can see a list of capital projects that we've had in the past, Parker Roof, Police Station, and in those accounts, there's always a little bit of money left over for different reasons. We would like to sort of clean that up a little bit and use those funds on our two major projects coming up, Senior Center project and the Killam School project. So Sharon's gone through and reallocated, asked to reallocate those funds to the specific projects based on the project need. And some of these, I mean, the library goes back to 2013. Some of these have been hanging around for quite a while. So I think it's a good cleanup. There's a reason, Sharon, I know there's a reason why you've kept balances in these accounts. Could you explain that if you don't mind?
So when it comes to building improvements like the library renovation, you can only transfer the remainder to a project that has similar borrowing terms or greater. So that has, any building improvement would have like a 20, 30-year borrowing. And so most of our smaller projects wouldn't have qualified, so had to wait. Everything else is, we've been moving Parker Roof around for, that's the gift that keeps on giving, Parker Roof. But whenever we have an opportunity, we try and clean these up, but the library one has sat out there for a while because we couldn't transfer it to anything. None of the projects we have been doing qualified. I will also say that it says Senior Center project. I updated it today to say. Emily has her hand up.
Oh, thank you, Emily.
Just wanted to be clear, all of those will be now null, right? Like there's nothing that will still have any balance remaining?
Not unless it has something out there. I think they're all going to be zero. Parker Roof, I was surprised there was something, but they had an encumbrance out there they hadn't closed. So I thought I'd already brought it back to zero. And they're like, oh, we don't need this PO. It's project's all done. We'll close the PO and I'll get rid of the money.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Sharon.
Yeah, projects that are obviously still ongoing, those will end up with some little bit left over, but we don't know what that'll be yet. So,
And also too, it reduces, by transferring this, it reduces the amount we have to borrow, not by much, but every little dollar counts, I think.
Yep. Any other questions about Article 5? Oh, Jeffrey.
A little curious as to why the different purposes were set. Like, I would have chosen, if I had Parker Roof to allocate to either this Recal or to Killam, I said, oh, Parker Roof was a school project, I'll assign that to the Killam School Building project. But you did not do it that way. Is that because of the length of the term, or is that?
I was trying to make it as equal as possible. I was trying to split it evenly, and I don't want to have to split between, okay, I'll give, 22,000 of the Parker Roof to this, I just was trying to find a way that the numbers would come out as close to 50-50 as I could.
So, go ahead, Mark.
The only thing is, I think there'd be more savings, Sharon, if it all got applied to the school, because that's a longer term out.
That is exactly.
I would be open to that if that's what if the board would, if FinCom would prefer I changed it, I would be open to that. I just figured that, both projects would want something going towards it, but that is entirely up to you guys. If you would like me to change it, I'd be willing to do so.
I mean, we the taxpayers have already, signed the check. Both of these projects are going to be funded entirely, and it's just a question of how much ends up coming back to our bills. So yeah, no, I'm assuming that what the assumption behind Mark's statement is that the interest rate on a longer borrowing will be slightly higher. Is that correct?
It very likely would be a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's how us normal people borrowing things works. So
I just didn't want to come across as favoring either project, so I was trying to split the money equally.
We're the finance committee. We favor saving money. So yeah, I mean, do we need to take a vote on that, or is there a?
I think we would move to amend the article to select a new purpose for the Killam School Building for all of the original project funding.
Well, it's not the article itself. I mean, that chart is in the background, right?
Well, so the table is in the article. It's not in the background. So it is actually.
It is. Yeah, I think I'd have to change the table. And I would change it. I don't have a problem with it. It's a very valid point, but I didn't want to come across as if I was favoring one project over the other, which is why I did what I did.
Go ahead, Andrew.
So would this table look kind of strange when it goes to a town meeting that you'll only have listed just the Killam School Building project in here and nothing for the senior center? It will just, I'm just saying, like, it could look kind of favoring the one project from the other one. I definitely see where Sharon is coming from. This, I would question this if it was only listed Killam School and nothing from, and just one line.
I feel, yeah.
But I think if you just say that we'll save more in interest payments by doing it this way.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of micromanaging the details of the presentation, I don't think you need a new purposes column. I think you can just say we would like to reallocate all of these to the longest borrowing that we are about to undertake, which is the Killam School Building project, and then it's not. It's clear why we're doing it. It's because that's the longest project that will have the highest interest rate.
I'm not sure if it requires a column that says the purpose.
Right. Exactly.
Identified in the article, but that's something that
you don't need the fourth out column in the table to say Killam. It's you can just put that in the text, I would assume. And
the whole background would have to change because I tell you how much is going to Killam and how much is going to the Center for Active Living. So I'd have to just rewrite the background, and I'm perfectly willing to do that if the board chooses Killam to be the recipient of all of it.
They could save even a little money. I'm in favor.
Statement, yeah, it makes complete sense.
Matt.
I just want to be able to double check because this was in the article that was actually closed by the select board. So there are changes, usually minor changes you can make within the four corners before it goes to town meeting. I want to double check that before we start making any sort of drastic changes to the article itself. And you can vote on what you want, and I can certainly double check that. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. So
that's a good point. I believe it's a question for the moderator whether the motion can be amended to redirect the purposes to only one of the two. My guess, I am not a town meeting moderator, is that allocating money to either of the two things included in the article is within the four corners of the article. But I think for our committee, it would probably be prudent to take a vote on the article as written and the article as potentially amended on the assumption that it can be amended in that way.
Edgar Ross has his hand up.
Oh, yes, Ed.
Thanks, Sharon, and thanks, Joe. No, I was just going to say the same thing about this the select board, just because of looking at it from that perspective, and then I do think that your suggestion, Joe, is the right one, where we do one of each. We just in case it gets decided upon, we have something that we've done on either side.
Jeffrey. So then, would we vote against the article as presented and vote for the article with all of it going to Killam? Because in fact, all of us do not support it as written. We would rather have it all go to Killam. So we can get up and make that presentation, right? And that clearly says to town meeting, we did not like this allocation. We voted against it. Please don't vote for it as it stands now.
I mean, the counterpoint there is if the town moderator says it cannot be changed from how it stands now because this part is in the article and not in the background or the motion.
I mean, we can amend the article on the floor at town meeting, right?
You don't. Technically, one does not amend articles. One amends motions, and one can only amend a motion in a way that is within the four corners of the article. So it's actually,
don't
make me get my copy.
I don't like the way it is. I'm going to vote against it because I don't want us to vote.
Yeah, I mean, this could be.
Town meeting can obviously say, if we can't amend it, then town meeting can decide that we're going to reallocate it, and if we have to reallocate it as shown here, then.
Yeah. Joe, can you explain that again? We can't. Someone on the floor can't change the article.
The article is the article. It's in the warrant. It's closed. One does not amend the article. Now there is a motion under each article, a main motion under each article, which is more or less identical to the article in most cases, but you may recall sometimes we get a printout of the motions for town meeting, and sometimes those include additional details. Often one does not, not to, disparage the authors of this article as written, but I've certainly seen town meeting articles before where the numbers are conspicuously omitted from the article so that they can be included in the motion and then amended freely.
So, but to Jeffrey's point, at some point in time, someone can actually change I guess I'm not understanding why if it can't be done now, why it can't be done on the floor.
So the select board has voted to close the warrant, correct? Yes. Yeah, that's already happened. So the warrant and the text in it has been, now the select board could reopen the warrant and modify it and close it again. But otherwise, the text written is the text approved by the select board and that will be given to town meeting. Mark.
Wouldn't we make a recommendation, that we approve the article with one change to it? Yeah, because we're
You can recommend it.
We're making a recommendation. We're not.
So
yeah, go ahead, Adrian. Just turn on your mic.
We can, when we vote for the articles, we're just giving our support for the article in town meeting. So at the same time, at the town meeting, you can actually say the finance committee voted, reviewed this article and has an adjustment to it, or has a proposal or an update, and that update will be what we just mentioned, and then when they make the motion to approve Article 5, they would say as amended.
So we actually have a select board chair on Zoom with a hand raised. So Chris, please go ahead.
Thanks, Joe. Matt, the agenda is not set for next Tuesday anyway. Can't we just reopen this and do it?
Yeah, I think I don't think we posted it today. Maybe we still could do it before Tuesday if the select board was willing to change it. Yeah.
If they vote on this, however which way, then we can add it to the agenda tomorrow and square that away to avoid all of this.
Okay. As long as the select board ultimately agrees to change it in a way that some comments.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. We can add it as an agenda item for next Tuesday. I think, let's see, it's next
Tuesday.
Yeah.
You're fine. You would post for that on Thursday, which is tomorrow.
All right. We'll check with town council to see that the warrant could be reopened.
You might also be able to check as to whether it's necessary. If it's not necessary, then you might not bother. If it's any trouble.
Sorry about that, guys.
No, it's all good.
Sure, you're just treating all your projects like your children. You don't want to give anyone, you don't play any favorites. We get it.
Andrew, go ahead.
Just a quick comment. When I
Please make the quick comment into the
when I thought about the Killam School is we will get some reimbursement for all of the expenses there. So, I mean, I don't know how this impacts that, but it's just a small amount compared to the big, how much money it's there. And then I thought, yeah, I mean, it's not going to make a difference. But my only concern is the visuals of it. And if somebody at town meeting says, "Oh, why are you giving all the money to the school?" You know what it is.
I am profoundly comfortable with the visuals of paying down the highest interest debt first.
Yeah. Turn.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So yes, I think to Andrew's earlier comment about like recommendation, I think the recommendation, we can vote on a recommendation with whatever wording we like. It's going to probably force somebody to retype something in the warrant. Sorry, but I think we can, make a recommendation to the effect of, Finance Committee voted to recommend the substance of Article 5 with the recommended amendment to allocate all of these funds to the Killam School Building project. And Ed, I see your hand.
Thanks, Joe. Just a quick follow-up, Sharon. So given that these were all, kind of previous projects, so what happens, we're not inadvertently tying our hands by saying we're applying this all to Killam, and if Killam comes under budget, then then we've now got a number for Killam. But since we're borrowing it for longer, that gives us more time. Am I making that right assumption there?
Yeah, and plus we would spend cash on hand, and this money is cash on hand before borrowing. So we would go through cash that we have before we borrow. So I think it would make perfect sense to go to Killam. I was, when I was splitting the savings from the debt falling off, somebody said to me, "You gave it all to Killam. Why did you, so I guess, yeah, that was in the back of my mind is, splitting the money as equally as possible. But more than anything, I think it would make most sense for it to go to Killam because Killam is going to be a 20-year borrowing and Recal is going to be a 15-year borrowing. So the higher interest rate will likely be on Killam.
And just to kind of follow up, just because I don't know if I heard it right or I said it right, but so if at the end of Killam, and we've already done kind of borrowing, but if it comes in under what we borrow, because that's essentially the situations we have with these 8, correct?
So we would borrow less in the end. So as we get closer to the end of the project and we know what it's really going to cost, the first tranche, but we usually do it in more than one tranche, and I think we'll at least do 2. So we'll have a better idea of where we're headed price-wise and if we're under or over, budget. And so we would borrow less. So this money has actually been borrowed and was left over. And that could happen with either one of these projects just because of their mere size. It's hard to get a project down to 0, right? But we're going to try and minimize the amount that we borrow and use all of our cash resources before we borrow that second tranche. So I would say that hopefully we can try and get that number and minimize the debt the best we can. And then obviously you always have contingency built into these projects. So it's really very hard to get down to 0, especially a large project like Killam or Recal. So it's very likely that there'll be money that will have to be transferred someplace else, but we want to minimize how much money that's going to be there.
But at the end of the day, I mean, again, obviously the saving of the interest is the right thing, but also if we're doing it on the longer termed project, it also gives us more, if we do have an allocation, it gives us more time to be able to, or does that not necessarily?
It wouldn't necessarily, like, we have to look for a project that qualifies for the same term of borrowing that we borrowed from. So like this Killam project would qualify for a 30-year borrowing. We'd have to be able to transfer it to another project like that, like another
So it'd have to be another long term.
Yes, it's got to have the right term. So it could sit there for, with the library, we spent according to our borrowing terms and we still had leftover, and they know that's going to happen. But it had to sit there because we didn't have the right project to actually move it to.
Gotcha.
We didn't do any building projects in the last 10 years, so.
No, that's helpful. I mean, so it does, if we end up, kind of playing this out, if we are off and there is money left over, we're left with fewer options because we need a project that we were going to borrow for 30 years versus something that was for Recal, which is, 15, or whatever that, something with a smaller term. It just gives us less options. But again, I think the savings of interest is a better is the better reason to do it versus not.
Agreed.
Thanks. Sorry, Joe.
And I'm not sure what you're apologizing for.
So could we have a motion to approve Article 5 with the change that the new purpose is Killam School?
Yes, I'm going to recommend the substance of Article 5 with a suggested amendment to really reallocate all funds to the Killam School building project.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Too slow.
Sorry, we kind of caught you off guard with me reading the motion in text, and then we just needed to so moved in there. And Ed probably never came, didn't come off mute, or didn't have to come off mute. All right.
That's
Any
it.
other comments or before we vote on this motion? All right, let's go. Ed.
Yes.
Emily.
Yep.
Jeffrey.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
And Joe Carnahan, yes. 8-0.
Okay, thank you. And I did just send an email to the town moderator and town council checking on the best move. So I'll report back so you know. Okay, the next one is Article 6. That's another standard article that we do this time of year. Approve prior year bills. There are 2 bills that we sort of discovered late and we would like permission to pay. They're listed in the background. One is to the city of Woburn, and the other is a very small amount to the Next Step volunteers for work on the Terra cabin. So the first one is for $3,245. The second one is for $246.03. And happy to answer any questions on that before you vote.
Any questions about Article 6? In that case, I'm looking at Emily's picture on Zoom. Can I get a motion?
Motion to recommend the contents of Article 6 to town meeting as presented.
Second.
Nailed it.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Ed. Okay. Any other comments for your vote? Let's vote. Ed?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Joe Carnahan, yes. Onward.
Thank you. The next one is Article 7, and this is a local adoption of Chapter 60, Section 3F. And that would allow us to create, essentially, it's called a Municipal Veterans Assistance Fund. And what it does is it allows taxpayers to, either on their tax bill and their excise bill, to essentially check a box and donate extra money to Reading veterans. And that would go, a separate account is created, and that would be managed by our veterans agent, Will Valliere. And obviously there'd be a lot of financial controls over it, but he would put together an application process. And the way he explained it to me is that even though veterans, most of them get some veterans benefit or assistance, sometimes they find themselves month to month in a difficult place where they can't meet a mortgage payment or they need groceries. And that he doesn't really currently have any discretion to help them in that way. Once in a while, we'll get some donated gift cards from a local business, and he'll dole out those if he can, but that's for, $25 or whatever. So it wouldn't be a large amount that he'd be giving out, and I think it would be more just a one-time basis to help the veterans through. But he tells me that there's a great need for this. He will be there at town meeting to explain further, the situation for veterans. But I think it's a good idea. It's something that we're allowed to do if we have this local adoption. It helps out veterans, and most importantly, too, people should understand it's not an extra tax assessment or something people have to pay. If they want to make essentially a donation, it's there for them to do. If not, pay the rest of the tax, and that's fine too. So,
all right. I see Ed's hand is up.
Thanks, Joe. Hey, Matt, just on that one, how do people, I know it's going to be a line item on bills, but is there going to be any explanation in the tax bills that what that is?
Yeah, I think probably would come up with some language to put in the tax bill saying, what exactly it is. I mean, there'd be a line that says donate to the Municipal Veterans Assistance Fund, and with maybe a box and an amount. But especially where it's new, if it does pass town meeting, we'll probably put together something more to go in the tax bill, and probably put online as well in social media, letting people know that this fund is new and it's there, and it's certainly not required. But if you would like to help out our local veterans, here's a way to do it and keep it all local. So
that's awesome.
Right. Mark.
Matt, what's the goal for the size of the fund?
I think, from what Will tells me, there's a great need, and he'll have the exact number of veterans, and all veterans would qualify for it. It's not specifically disabled veterans or combat veterans. So, I mean, I think depending on what people want to give, I don't see it going up to tens of thousands of dollars. I think probably at least a few $1,000s to get it going, and once people know about it, maybe a little bit more. And there'll be some qualifications in a whole application form that Will devise, based on what he feels the need is and what the qualifications should be. But it could be anything, but I'm not thinking it's going to be a whole lot of money, at least at first, but hopefully it will grow over time. And Sharon will segregate that and keep track of that as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, yes, Jane.
If you don't mind, just wanted to add a little color to this question. The need is that where Will can spend money on the veterans accounts are highly regimented. So there's a number of them. They're allocated in the budget, but they're very specific needs. And there are other ancillary needs that that veterans and their surviving spouses have that don't fall neatly into any of those other buckets. And so that's what he's trying to address. That's why it's in the general laws to adopt, because this is a fairly common issue in municipalities, and it gives Will a little bit more of a tool set to work with to help our veterans and surviving spouses.
Henry.
Just out of curiosity, what's the selection criteria for them, or is that a specific question? Like, is it like a scoreboard on how will we know who to give these funds to?
Well, I mean, he does have a list of all the veterans, and he meets with a lot of veterans regularly. And, I think if a veteran came to see him and saying, hey, listen, I'm having a bad month for whatever reason, I can't cover it, Will would say, okay, here's an application. Here's how I could help you. You've got to fill out this form. Will would review it and then make an allocation based on that. And, that's how I understand it working. And again, will be there at town meeting to explain a little bit more on it, but that's how he explained it to me at least. So,
Joe.
Just logistically, like, how's the money actually get collected? Like, you check the box when you pay?
Yeah, for the extra amount, and that comes in with your tax. And I think it's even more important on the excise tax, because people generally pay that directly, where their property tax, sometimes a mortgage company pays, and they almost never see the bill. But maybe Sharon could add to this, but I assume that extra money comes in, we make note of it, segregate it into the separate account. I checked with town council. We don't need a separate article setting up a separate account. This does it by the adoption of the state statute, and then it's treated like a normal account from there on.
Because it definitely seems like it would be more work. I'm not.
It would be. It certainly would be a little bit more work. But if there's a need out there and we can address it, and it's not going to be a big increase for taxpayers, if it helps Reading people, we're happy to do a little extra work to get that done.
So I can add a little bit to that. And so if, for instance, let's say somebody has $100 motor vehicle excise and they choose to give $25, they're going to have one check, let's say, for $125, and we would allocate the $100 to the motor vehicle bill, and then we'd allocate the $25 to this municipal fund. So that would be how it would be tracked. We'd have like a charge code for them to use that they could put whatever the donation is, and it would keep track of it that way.
John.
Matt, are these donations tax deductible for residents?
That's a good question. I want to double check on that. I think they may be, because we're essentially nonprofit. I'd have to check with the IRS.
And then, does the town
I'm not sure.
Does the town have to mail out receipts at tax time to people that do donate?
If they, we'll have to see if they are tax deductible. That might be something that we do out there. And we can see what other towns do on it as well. But I'd have to double check on that. So,
I think the IRS, there is a threshold on the amount, how much. I believe it used to be either 400 or 250. Yeah, might be 250.
The threshold for what exactly?
For sending a receipt.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes. Sorry. The requirement. You're talking about the IRS requirement for a receipt. I mean, certainly I get every time I pay my excise tax, I print the PDF of that receipt so that I don't have to, if something gets misplaced, I don't have to pay it twice. I assume it would appear there if nowhere else. But actually, while we're on the subject of sort of the administrative of how this would actually be implemented, is this supported by the Invoice Cloud software that we, for those of us who pay our bills online?
Sharon, do you know that answer? About Invoice Cloud?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what he said.
Oh, the question is whether this is supported by the Invoice Cloud software that we use for online bill payment. And we use that both for excise tax and property tax.
I would think we would be able to support it through Invoice Cloud.
Cool. Oh, okay. We have and Andrew says yes. All right. Other comments or questions on Article 7? I don't see any on Zoom either. All right. Then can I get a motion, please?
Motion to recommend the contents of Article 7 to town meeting as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Ed. Our remote compatriots are doing all the work. All right. Last chance for comments before we vote. Let's go. Ed.
Yes.
Emily.
Yes.
Jeffrey.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And yes, 8-0.
Okay, thank you. The next article, and the last one you'd have to vote on, unless you feel like voting on snow shoveling bylaw, which you probably don't, is Article 10, and that's a request from the Town Forest Committee, and they're asking for $50,000 to remove invasive species in the town forest. This is something we have funded in the past. We did go through a process where we removed a lot of the dying pine trees there in the town forest, and that's left space for a lot of these invasive species to grow, which is harmful to the forest. So they would like to continue with trying to monitor that and alleviate the invasives in the town forest. This is 1/3 of the request that they got approved for last year. It seems to be an ongoing issue. The town forest, like I said, it's a request from them. They put it on the warrant. There'll be a town meeting to explain to town meeting, more fully about the need. But where it came from a committee, we added it to the warrant as required. $50,000. I mean, I'm sure you'll ask where's that going to come from. I think really the only funding source would be free cash at this point. They didn't identify any other funding source for it. So it would be a reduction in free cash of $50,000 if town meeting decides to fund it. So.
Do we have comments or questions on that? I see we do have, I know this is probably implemented through the DPW. We do have Chris Cole here. Entry.
So what happens if the 50K is not enough?
Chris.
If they don't get the 50,000, the invasive is just going to keep growing, and eventually it's going to get ahead if it isn't already. So they're just trying to keep ahead of this as best they can.
Oh, well, that's fine. My question was, do you think that 50K is? Did they get a quote or something? How did they come up with 50K?
I don't know specifically. I think it's just the ask they're doing, just to cover a certain portion, a certain area.
Is it? Okay.
I think it's based on what they've done prior too. They said it's about 1/3 of what they've done prior. They do have, people that do. They don't do this themselves, obviously. So people that look at this and experts in this area that recommend, and so they could probably do with more, but they thought that was a reasonable. They understand the financial situation we're in. They don't want to overburden the town, and they thought that was a reasonable request for town meeting.
So coincidentally, I was at a Town Forest Committee meeting in early September when this was discussed. I was actually there to talk to them about the CPA, not about FinCom stuff. But they wanted to ask me a lot of questions because they said, "Oh, you're on FinCom." Mm-hmm. So I actually got briefed on this then. They did, in fact, have a quote for an amount per acre. They had a plan in terms of the areas to target. It is, I think, my question. And my question is not one that would lead me to vote against this article. It's a question that makes me just sort of worried for the future is, how we get this funded sustainably. Like, it's great that we're allocating much less in free cash than before, but obviously the ideal amount to be allocated of free cash is 0. At the same time, it's the worst year in quite a while to ask to put item lines into the operating budget. I'm sure you're looking to cut everywhere you possibly can. So, and perhaps this is not really, again, a question for this article, but it's just a concern that's on my mind, is figuring out how we can sustain this, indefinitely, because it is, people will always be composting their invasive plants they pull out of their yard, and then that stuff will get tracked into the rest of the town forest and grow. And that is always going to be that's always going to be something that the town forest needs to deal with. We have to deal with it as the stewards of the town forest. Mark.
So why isn't this covered under public works budget, or because it sounds like it's ongoing?
Like, it is ongoing. I mean, my budget right now just couldn't, cover something like that as it is. I have a very limited budget as it is for my own expenses. And so trying to find 50,000 is just not possible out of my own budget right now.
So this is sort of 50 this year, how much next year, how much the year, and then you spend 50, and then the next year, if you don't spend, does the invasive come where we just spent this money on? I don't know.
So I'm on the edge of my expertise here, but my understanding of it is that with, almost all invasive species management, money spent sooner always saves you money later, because it's, even if you did, like hypothetically, if we were to spend $50,000 either this year or next year, the situation would be better 2 years from now if we spent it this year, to get, more things sooner. Yes, it would get worse when it wasn't being managed, but that this is something that's a problem that, compounds like interest, and you want to pay it down sooner if you can.
That's the question. How many years we get out?
You need to be a lot closer to the mic.
How many years we get out of the 50K? That becomes the actual question. That would be nice to know, but
Last year was 150K, right? So yeah.
No, I believe the intent here would be for this money to be spent in the next year. So it's not intent to fund multiple years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe, go ahead.
And again, I'm not an expert on this either, but like the last sentence there, I think this is dealing more with the application of herbicides by licensed applicators, because I know on Saturday, anyone that's interested, Trails Committee is ripping out buckhorn, so if anyone wants to spend Saturday up there in the woods, so I'm definitely in support of this article. They're trying to mitigate, the amount that they're going to come back and ask for each year. But I think, I'm just going back to Bill Sullivan's presentation, at town meeting. My understanding is, they're trying to hopefully keep the invasive species out, so that non-invasive species can, get started and hopefully.
That is another way in which this does get better if we deal with it sooner, where the more time we give to the native plants, the less opportunity there is for invasives in future years. John.
I don't know if this is a Chris question or a Joe question, since you're at the meeting, but do we know what species we're looking at herbicide here?
So Joe McDonough is right that I believe this was focused on the things that require professional application, because volunteers can pull buckthorn, and you joke as though it's not fun, but if I didn't have to, if I didn't have something else to do, I would totally do it. But yes, there are things like Tree of Heaven and I'm trying to say the other nasty ones. Japanese knotweed is another one. Yes. Unfortunately, if you name it, it's in the town forest, in terms of invasive species in New England.
I think buckthorn's one of the biggest culprits.
Yeah. But that's the one. I think that's the one that does not necessarily require herbicide. It's Tree of Heaven, where you can just do literally anything to that thing, and it's got like a 6-foot deep root, and it's going to come back unless you bring the Roundup.
I have no problem with recommending this and letting the town forest committee explain it on the floor of town meeting too.
I expect discussion given all the other financial conversations we've had.
See how late at night we get to it. How long that discussion runs, right?
This is before snow shuffling, so. All right. Other comments, questions on this article? Sounds like it's time for a motion.
Motion to recommend the contents of Article 10 to town meeting as presented.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Thank you, Ed. Last chance for comments before a vote. All right, then we are voting. Ed?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Henry?
yes.
John?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Joe Carnahan, yes. 8-0. So now we need to discuss the giving the reports. That's it. The only other article in the warrant is snow shoveling. Which
No other financial articles. That does it.
Now there is. Thank you to a couple staff folks heading out.
Department heads.
Yes. I will comment. I guess it is not on our agenda because our agenda is financial articles, and the charter update is not a financial article. Interestingly, there is an amendment to the proposed amendment to how finance committee members are appointed. Thanks. If you didn't read that part, go look it up. It's nothing controversial. Actually, you don't reappoint yourself, which I think is a extremely solid recommendation. All right, so back to the reports. I will start actually, rather than just dictatorially assigning these. Are there any ones that people are particularly interested in presenting? If you want to, go for it. I was going to volunteer for that one if you didn't. But...
I like you.
Okay. Yes. No. It's all right. No, I will certainly let you take that one. It's town meeting. I can talk there if I really want to. I don't need to be giving the report for that. All right. So then let's take it from the top. I will. If there are no other volunteers, I'm just going to walk through people here in the room. Jeffrey, do you want to do the capital plan? Yeah. And then Andrew, the amendments to the FY26 budget. And then the transfer of borrowed funds. Actually, yeah. Mark was the one who had the good suggestion on that, so I want to give you first dibs if you want it.
On 5, you're talking?
Yes. Yeah, that's fine. All right, sounds good. No good deed should go unpunished. All right. Then I'll turn to John for prior year's bills. Yeah. And the additional funds for Veterans Fund, I will be happy to present. All right. Got that down in the notes. Jeffrey for 3, Andrew for 4, Mark for 5, John for 6, Joe Carnahan for 7, and Joe McDonough for 10.
Those on Zoom get nothing.
Yeah, well.
It pays to be multitasking.
I mean, they did. In fairness, they did do like all the motions tonight, so they're pitching in their own way. All right. So, returning to the agenda, we have future agendas. We did get a question about whether we wanted to post for Matt stepped out, but we actually don't need him here to have this conversation. Whether we want to post for the select board meeting when there'll be a review of financial policies. I'm guessing there aren't that many people who are looking for something to do on Tuesday night, but didn't want to put that out as a question. Sounds like I should try to attend since some of this was my idea. Other folks are certainly welcome to attend, but we don't need to. It's not a future agenda if we're not posting.
Joe, were you saying this for next Tuesday's select board meeting?
Correct. Because Matt has told us that our request to them for a state review of financial policies will be on their agenda. So
I can be there, Joe, too. So.
All right, cool. All right, yes. If there's a couple of us who will try to make it, that increases the odds that one of us will be able to, even if something comes up. So I appreciate that. No. But Matt does not look like we need to post for Tuesday. We don't need to post FinCom for Tuesday.
Okay.
There might be 2 or 3 of us. It looks like.
Okay, that's fine. And do you think somebody will come though?
Yes.
Okay.
Ed and I will both try to make it.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Again, others are welcome, but if a 5th person shows up, I will politely. All right. Okay, then, so let's see, looking back at the calendar, so we have a spot for a meeting in early November, but I believe that's like a provisional spot in case there are last minute warrant changes. Is that?
Well, I think one of the other things that's developed since the last meetings, we are, and I ran this by the select board, we're going to try to do a special meeting within the town meeting, so there'll be a separate warrant for that. That's only 2 articles, One of them was the senior tax exemption that we did a few years ago. Apparently that has to be essentially re-upped every 3 years. So that's coming up. That expires at the end of the fiscal year. And in order to give the legislature enough time, because it's a home rule, Victor, who's our assessor, felt that we should present this now and give the state enough time. And then that's really the only financial article. There's one more, but that's the one you would be concerned about. So we might need another meeting to vote on that as well.
All right. So on my calendar, I'm also pulling up the town website to make sure it agrees with my calendar. There's a spot for a meeting on November 5th. That is right before town meeting. Although I'm assuming that maybe with a special, actually there's a question. Is there a constraint here where we need to meet to, satisfy some, print deadline, or can we just meet at the last minute for town meeting and give our report live?
You could do that too. I mean, you can do it. You can give your report live there. I mean, if we have enough time to get things in the book, that's preferable. But if that can't happen for whatever reason, we've had an ADU, but certainly I think bylaw committee give a report on the floor.
So what would the deadline be if we were to get it into the print packet? Because I kind of thought this meeting was sort of the last minute.
Yeah, no, this was kind of. I don't know if Jackie, are you on? I think because Jackie.
Yes, I am.
So do you know, in terms of, I'm just talking a little bit about the special town meeting and closing that warrant and having a vote on that, and also going to print. Do you know what the date is? The print date is that you're working with on that is?
So we would be able to print that in-house because it would be a really small warrant report. Mm-hmm. So we would just have to have everything by the 23rd so it can be available for town meeting members on the 27th.
Okay. So that, in terms of the FinCom vote, if that would come later, that report could be just made on the floor then, essentially, right?
Correct. If they don't vote before the 23rd.
Well, we can't vote now. We don't have it yet. And,
right. And the 23rd is coming up. So.
Right, the 23rd.
And the select board doesn't close it until Tuesday.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a last minute thing, but I didn't want to jeopardize the senior tax exemption, and I just found out about it. So within the last couple of weeks. So.
What was that, Andrew?
Does that mean we have meet on the 22nd, or?
So we could meet on the 22nd. Our calendar currently says we'll meet on the 5th if needed, not the 22nd. So if we're doing a live report on the floor, meeting on the 5th is fine.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's okay. Mm-hmm. It's what's held on my calendar. And I mean, I love you folks, but 3 Wednesdays in a row is like, that should be like, we're going to do that in March.
Yeah.
We don't hopefully need to do that in October.
Okay.
All right, so let's plan on voting on that at our November 5th meeting.
That's fine.
Is there anything else that needs to go into the November 5th meeting that we should be thinking about? I suppose it's possible there may be follow-up from the select board on financial policies. We'll know after Tuesday. There also might not be anything for us to discuss. If the select board says, yes, we'll ask, and then they ask, and then we haven't heard back yet, so nothing to discuss. I do understand there is some waiting list for that policy review thing. All right, other things for future agendas? All right. I didn't see minutes in the packet.
She sent it today.
Oh, she sent it today. Okay, and I had the sort of day at work where I did not check my personal email, so I have not looked at the minutes. But have enough other people on the committee seen the minutes? We can put them on the screen here too, of course.
They were lovely.
I mean, I would have been genuinely surprised if they were. But so I'm taking a look myself right now. Thank you for everyone's patience while we read. This reminded me of a future agenda topic that I mentioned earlier tonight, but I'll hold on to that while people are commenting on these minutes. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes? Emily, you better make a motion before Mark uses his microphone here.
Motion to approve the minutes from the October 8th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting as presented.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Jeffrey. I'm sorry, Ed.
That's okay.
All right. Switch back to the music and Zoom stuff. All right. Let's take a vote. Ed?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Henry?
Abstain, present.
Very well. John?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Joe Kernan, yes. So 7 yes, 1 abstain. The future agenda item that we talked about earlier was I would, and this doesn't have to be November 5th, but you know, we're now with the financial forecast looking like it is, people are going to ask questions, and we have our own questions about the actual mechanics of considering an override. Well, who talks to whom, when, what are the options to vote, who decides when the vote is. I already have opinions, and I'm sure I'm not the only one in this well-informed and active committee. So that is something that, you know, if there's anything to discuss yet on November 5th, we can talk about it then. Otherwise, we want that to be a 5-minute meeting where we turn around and approve the, you know, one thing and go on. We can do it that way too and revisit it later. I guess the urgency of the agenda item depends on the timeline of an override, which itself is the question. So you and I can be in touch about that and what we need. All right. Double check.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, second.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Emily. Let us vote. Ed.
Yes.
Emily.
Yes.
Jeffrey. Yes. Joe. Henry.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Joe Carnahan. Yes. Thank you all for a productive meeting.